My name is Joe McNally. I'm the acting United States Attorney for the Central District of California. I'm joined here by Homeland Security Special Agent in Charge, Eddie Wong, and Cheryl Davies, the Director of Field Operations for Los Angeles Customs and Border Protection. We're here today to announce federal criminal charges against 9 defendants who worked with partners in China to operate a criminal network that illegally smuggled what we estimate to be more than $200 million worth of counterfeit goods from China into the United States through the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. The Los Angeles and Long Beach ports are the busiest container ports in the Western Hemisphere. Ensuring the integrity of who and what comes into our country is critical to our border security and ultimately to our national security. The 9 defendants charged in the indictment participated in a wide-ranging scheme to circumvent inspections at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. The scheme involved logistics companies, warehouse owners, and corrupt truckers. They worked as criminal partners to defy U.S. customs laws, to illegally smuggle enormous quantities of goods from China into the United States. 8 of the 9 defendants have been arrested. One defendant, the lead defendant, who orchestrated the scheme, is a fugitive and is believed to be in China. Let me talk to you about how the scheme worked. As part of the scheme, the defendants and their criminal partners in China filled shipping containers with contraband, counterfeit goods, illegal and dangerous chemicals, and other contraband that is not permitted to be imported into the United States. U.S. law requires that all containers coming into the United States be sealed with a locked security seal that is assigned a unique number. This is a security system. Containers, from the time they leave China, cannot be opened until they arrive in the United States and clear the Customs and Border Patrol inspection process. And the seals are key to that security process. Members of this scheme in the United States and China evaded this security system by learning in advance the unique serial numbers assigned to these seals that would be associated with their illegal shipments. And they created duplicate fake seals in order to circumvent the inspection process. They would create those duplicate fake seals in China, and they would send them from China to their criminal partners here in the United States. When the shipments arrived at the port here in Long Beach and Los Angeles, U.S. Customs and Border Protection would direct, as part of their normal process, that some of those containers go to secondary inspection. Those secondary inspection sites are a short distance from the port. Instead of taking the containers from the port to those secondary inspection sites, members of the scheme, including the corrupt truck drivers, would instead take the contraband shipments to off-site warehouses. At those warehouses, according to the indictment, members of the conspiracy would open up and cut those seals, take out the contraband contained in those shipping containers, and ultimately put a new counterfeit seal on the containers and then pass them to CBP for inspection. Members of the scheme would then have the containers, now smuggled with the illegal goods, inspected by CBP, and they presented them just like they had come straight from the port complex. The truck drivers involved in the scheme were often paid 10 times the normal rate, and sometimes much more, to illegally transport the containers to a warehouse before inspection. During the investigation, law enforcement identified that Chinese co-conspirators were sending these seals into the United States, these counterfeit seals, and they were able to intercept around 50 counterfeit seals. Law enforcement then linked those counterfeit seals to inbound shipments, intercepted those shipments, and removed the contraband inside. Items of contraband include chemicals such as R22, tens of millions of dollars in counterfeit merchandise, unapproved food and other types of drugs that pose consumer risk. During this investigation into this smuggling, federal authorities seized roughly $130 million worth of contraband. And we conservatively estimate that the defendants who are charged here and their criminal partners in China smuggled more than $200 million worth of goods into the United States. We have charged the defendants here with serious federal crimes. That includes smuggling, taking off using counterfeit seals, and conspiracy. If convicted, they face substantial federal prison sentences. The 7 smuggling charges contain a penalty of up to 20 years in federal prison. Smugglers harm our economy by introducing counterfeit items into our markets and robbing U.S. taxpayers of millions of dollars in revenue. Prohibited and unregulated items coming into the United States threaten the health and well-being of our citizens. And smugglers threaten our national security by allowing dangerous items to enter without detection. Let me end where I started, and that is that our border and port security is critical to our national security. And we'll continue to work with our law enforcement partners here to hold accountable individuals that attempt to violate the security of our ports and our borders. I want to thank our law enforcement partners, the special agents with the Homeland Security investigations who helped bring this case and bring it quickly, our partners at the U.S. Customs and Border Protection who identified and alerted our partners to the criminal activity here, Coast Guard Investigative Service for their support of the investigation, and the individuals that worked on this case. That includes AUSA's Colin Scott and Amanda Elbegin from my National Security Division, as well as special agents from Homeland Security, Martina Diono and Han Yit. I'll now turn it over to Eddie Wong, the special agent in charge for Homeland Security investigations here in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning. My name is Eddie Wong, and I'm the special agent in charge for Homeland Security investigations here in Los Angeles. Behind me today is one half of the nation's largest and busiest seaport complexes. It is estimated that about 30% of all international seaborne cargo containers entering or exiting the United States traverse through the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. Now, with this much activity, transnational criminal organizations have a wide berth to operate and exploit vulnerabilities. And the defendants charged in this indictment took full advantage and are alleged to have smuggled into the United States hundreds of millions of dollars worth of contraband through the port complex. While much of the contraband that we have seized was counterfeit goods, this criminal scheme has exposed a vulnerability that has the potential for much more serious implications, including those regarding national security and the smuggling of precursor chemicals to produce narcotics. So, the Department of Homeland Security takes these matters seriously because our primary mission is to ensure the safety and the security of the homeland, all the while facilitating the legitimate trade system and protecting the U.S. Supply chain. So I want to thank the dedicated investigators and task force officers from my office, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Coast Guard Investigative Services, the United States Attorney's Office, as well as the numerous state and local law enforcement partners that participated in this investigation. In closing, I'd like to say that HSI will continue to protect the American consumer, the American worker, and American ingenuity, because economic security is homeland security, and homeland security is national security. Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to DFO Davies.
Thank you, Sakwang. Before I begin, I want to thank the U.S. Attorney's Office with the Central District of California and Homeland Security Investigations Los Angeles for their extraordinary commitment and dedication to this case. Their efforts have been crucial to bringing those involved to justice. You are likely wondering how this sophisticated trade fraud started in the first place, or was uncovered in the first place, rather. Before I get to that, let me give you a little perspective. The LA Long Beach Seaport Complex is the largest in the U.S. and one of the top 10 in the world. In fiscal year 2024, Customs and Border Protection at the LA Long Beach Seaport processed 5.2 million ocean containers. That equates to over 14,000 containers coming in each day. These containers carry everything from machinery, raw materials, wearing apparel, electronics, to agricultural products. It was only a matter of time before criminals saw this massive flow of goods as an opportunity to commit fraud. To ensure the security of cargo, U.S. regulations require that all containers bound for the U.S. be sealed with a high security seal, such as this one. Over the years, Customs and Border Protection has developed rigorous standards for high security seals to prevent tampering and to protect the integrity of the importation process. Now let's talk about how we got here today. In 2023, a CBP agriculture specialist was doing an enforcement examination and he noticed something unusual with the shipment. He saw that the high security seal appeared to have been tampered with and that the cargo inside did not match what was on the manifest. He immediately notified his supervisors and they quickly realized that the original cargo appeared to have been removed and replaced with domestic cargo before the shipment was presented to CBP for inspection. The vigilance of this agriculture specialist unveiled an intricate network of logistics companies, brokers, freight forwarders, and truckers who are working in concert to circumvent CBP inspection. This sophisticated scheme is planned prior to the cargo arriving at the port. From the shipping terminal, the container, which has been placed on hold by CBP, is driven to an unauthorized third-party warehouse. There, the original high-security seal is broken, the container is opened, and the contraband is removed. The container is then reloaded with generic goods, and a cloned or fake security seal bearing the original seal's numbers is placed on the container and it's sent to CBP for inspection. Over the last 2 years, CBP has identified 141 cargo diversion incidents and effected 204 seizures. These seizures include everything from controlled substances, chemical precursors, weapons parts, fake postage stamps, counterfeit U.S. coins and consumer products, drug paraphernalia, and over 220 tons of prohibited plant and animal products. These shipments also contained a number of capsule filling machines which can be used in the production of illicit chemicals, including fentanyl. The vast majority of this cargo did arrive from Asia. CBP has also intercepted cloned or fake security seals coming from Asia at several international air cargo hubs located across the U.S. We at CBP are very proud that a single action of one of our employees led to the discovery and prosecution of one of the largest and most sophisticated conspiracies to commit trade fraud. CBP employees proudly serve their communities and the American public by protecting them from dangerous and fraudulent imports and while facilitating economic growth. We do this every day with vigilance, service, and integrity. Thank you. Yes.
I'll now take any questions. So I could tell you that the time frame alleged in the indictment is the summer of 2023 to the summer of 2024, and there are interceptions occurring during that time period. I don't have the specific dates, but once that we learned of the ongoing criminal activity, we moved to figure out, one, how it was happening, and obviously discovered not just the seal process in the United States and trucks being diverted, but also the counterfeit seals coming into the United States, and took steps to intercept those that were being shipped in from China. Correct. There are 9 defendants who are charged in the indictment. And those include the leader of the scheme, who is a fugitive, believed to be in China. His name is Mr. Zhang, a.k.a. Sonic. And then there are 8 others who have been arrested. I believe that one of them was detained without bond, and then the others made their appearance and have either been granted bond or are pending. We can get you more details on that. Yeah, so the use of the seals and the diversion of the trucks identified a vulnerability. The Customs and Border Patrol has taken steps to address that. I'm not going to get into exactly what it is, because I think that would present its own risks. But they have identified the issue and have taken steps to address it. Other questions? Yes, sir. Sure. So let me take your first question. Of those 9 defendants, 5 of them are Chinese nationals. Now, a couple of them have status in the United States, but they include people who are Chinese nationals, and I believe it's 5 of them. Your second question was how much fentanyl is associated with these shipments. There was not fentanyl in these particular shipments. You heard from Ms. Davies about what types of things were in these containers, but there was not fentanyl seized. I think the broader point here is we need to know what's coming into our country in containers. We didn't seize every container, but what we could tell you based on what we seized is it contained a lot of tens of millions of dollars of counterfeit, some dangerous chemicals, including those that Ms. Davies alluded to, that we don't want in the country. And the defendants here brought in illegal goods and will be held accountable for it.
What do you think was the process or the timeline from them moving the cargo here, taking it to another location, and then returning it? Do you guys have a policy as to how long a cargo ship would be in transit, and do you see some failures there?
So I think we're talking about 2 different things. So one is the cargo ship leaving China and getting here, which provides a timetable for them to be able to send the seal to the United States. The second part of it is once those containers arrive right here in Long Beach or Los Angeles, they are then moved to a secondary inspection facility where CBP ultimately does what they're mandated to do by law. That time period between when they leave the port and get to that secondary inspection place is something that certainly we looked at and we're continuing to look at and monitor to make sure that these diversions can't take place. Beyond that, I'm not gonna comment on it.
But was there a policy that you think wasn't followed as to how long a cargo ship had or container had to be in transition, or how long you guys had to inspect it before it returned to the port?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is that something you're looking at though to try to address the issue? Because it seems that's where the lapse have been, that Border Patrol had to inspect it when it went off site. So what was that? I guess
The lapse between it leaving and arriving at the secondary inspection, that time frame that you're referring to, allowed them certainly to unload the cargo, and is something that CBP is going to have to address in order to make sure this doesn't happen again.
I guess the question on the table is there a policy in place for you guys as to how long you guys had to?
There's not a policy currently in place that requires a certain. At the moment, there's no policy in place that requires the container to be brought to CBP for a secondary inspection within the certain time frame.
All one warehouse, or there multiple locations?
There are multiple locations, all within the city of Industry.
Last one. So what is the maximum sentence if these guys are found guilty?
20 years imprisonment on the smuggling charge, 10 years on the counterfeit seals charge, and 5 years on the conspiracy charge.
Were the defenders recruited? Did they work here for a long period of time? What can you tell us as to how they were at the port?
The truck drivers were recruited. They were not part of what I would say the core scheme. They were individuals who had access to the port, worked here doing both legitimate and illegitimate shipments. Most of the truck drivers who would typically drive the trucks from here to a secondary inspection site for CBP would typically get $200 or $300 every time that they moved a shipment. These guys were getting about $10,000 and were recruited into the scheme because it was lucrative. The other individuals had ties to criminal partners in China. And I think we're the core, certainly Sonic, Mr. Zhang, was really the facilitator ultimately in the scheme, and then brought others, including the warehouse owners, into it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. The news release has been issued. An indictment is attached to it. We're going to read it. I would imagine that the principals are available for one-on-ones. Thanks for coming out on this beautiful day.
Just one final note, please refer, this is not about the Port of LA, it's the LA Long Beach Seaport Complex. Remember, there's twin ports. It's not only the Port of LA, it's the LA Long Beach Seaport Complex.